Okay, so descending device, new times, no quillback, reduced limit of vermilion, right? Because it was 4 and now it's 2.
Right.
So those are the changes. That's the executive summary of the changes.
Right.
We got a long history of how we get there, but that's the
It's
executive
actually
summary.
fairly simple when you look at it that way.
Oh, there's a good one. Doubled up on the reds. No bait, just a jig. God, that feels good. 1 red, 2 reds. Right there, baby. Yeah. All right, this is it. We're doing it.
There we go. It's working.
There we go. I think we're good now. This is fun.
Good morning. I'm Louie Zimm.
I figure we'll just get a whole bunch of footage and then I'll just edit it. And then I'm basically gonna do like what I did last time with the showing the screen of the regs, and then maybe
Like I have here.
Exactly. Yep. I'll get the official one when it comes out, I think, but I'll do some prep work
Yeah,
before
you'll
it
have
comes
to.
out.
Yeah.
So I don't want to. It's not a. I've never done this. I've never done this, but and I'm sure I'm going to come away with this my head spinning. So I'm really happy that we're recording it, and then I'll break it down.
Okay.
And do what I do. So why do you know about all this stuff?
Why do I know? Or how do I know about all this stuff? Well, I'm the co-vice chair. These days we have co-vice chairs of the Groundfish Advisory Subpanel of the Pacific Fishery Management Council. And so you may ask, what the heck is the Pacific Fishery Management Council? Most people don't know it exists. I did not know it existed until I started talking to Bob Fletcher, who was my sponsor to get in the club here 18 years ago.
Yeah.
And he was the one of the leaders in that group. And so when he retired, I took over his.
My dad knew Bob Fletcher.
Oh yeah.
My dad ran sport boats up in Oxnard.
Oh God, he
and
would.
Down here in Point Loma. But I think Bob was running a dive boat next to my dad running a sport boat. So my dad told stories where they trade fish for lobster all the time.
Oh my goodness.
Back in abalone back in the day.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was okay back then.
Yeah, well, Bob.
This was 40 years ago.
Bob was actually the deputy director of what's called the Fish and Game at that time.
Oh wow.
And but before that, he and I both ran sport boats. He had the Cat Special. I ran the
I worked on the Cat Special.
There you go. I ran the Faith, and then I had the Falcon for 7 years. And so we were code boats. In the fleet you have little groups, and so we were all the same group. And and then when I wanted to become a member here, I looked. Somebody said, "Well, look, who do you know as a member?" It turned out most of my neighbors, but Bob Fletcher. I said, "Oh," so I had been out of touch with him for 18 years, 20 years. So I went over there, and he says, "Well, we'll have to have a meeting, just like we're having right now," and it was great. And so the first thing we did together is we worked on the Marine Life Protection Act. Basically, his title was Captain No, and I was the guy from Scripps Institution of Oceanography. So
you worked at Scripps when you met him?
Yeah, I had just retired from Scripps. We're looking down at the dock right now. I ran the research boats for 24 years.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's why I look at that boat and I go, who is it? Yeah, and so when I retired, people asked me, what are you going to do now that you're retired? And I said, well, I'd like to get into fisheries management, and I'd like to join a yacht club, and I don't know anybody in the yacht club. And all my friends said, oh, yes, you do.
So you retired 18 years ago, is that what so you retired from Scripps 18 years and then you started a new...
Yeah, new career. So I actually retired from Scripps when I was 55, and I'm 71 now. I actually went to part-time when I was 53, so that's how many years ago. God, does it add up? I don't know. Time
it's like
flies.
different lives. I think about we have different chapters in our life, and even me, I'm younger than you, but I've got chapters in my life.
Yeah.
Well, let's just talk about like the college days, and then the early work hard days, and then the family days, and the kid days, and then even a couple things in my career. But
isn't that funny? Because I started out commercial fishing my way through college. Actually, commercial fishing before I went to college, commercial fishing, learning that I better go to college. and then this is particularly appropriate. So I was fishing rock cod, and then the gill net came in really strongly. A bunch of the guys around here got gill nets, and so most of my rock cod spots got stripped. And what happens with rock cod or rockfish is a number of those kind of fish actually travel between reefs, between hard spots. They actually move, so you put the gill net in between the hard spots and you just slaughter them. So they slaughtered them. And that happened to me in, let's see, about 75, yeah, 76 and 77, that's what that happened. And I had to go, then I went working on the sport fishing boats, because I was already working with Roy Everingham on his bait boats, so it was natural for me to go to the sport boats. Yeah, so that happened.
A lot.
That happened, and it was a big deal around here. You know, hand lining rock cod was a way that you could earn a living, and that went away when the gill nets came in. Continue on until the year 2000, the combination of gill nets out here and trawling, heavy duty industrial level trawling up north all the way up to the Canadian border, combined with bad recruitment years of rockfish. You see, rockfish, what they do is they especially the ones that sit on the bottom, they sit around and they wait for a year that's really good, and then they spawn like crazy. Or maybe let's put it this way: they spawn like crazy as much as they can every year, but some years all the progeny get washed way out to sea. Let's say they spawn and there's a big upwelling, and that you get a jet, and all those babies get shot halfway to Hawaii where they starve to death and die. Or you have a good year where all the babies, you know, what happens with rockfish, they have live young. You know that. They have eggs, they actually copulate.
I didn't know
they
that.
have,
Like most of the rockfish we get, like the bocaccios and the vermilion and all that, they all birth live young?
All have live young.
How come I've never caught one? Because I've caught perch where they're kicking out little perch.
Yes.
I've never caught a rockfish.
Oh, but you got to look closely. I mean,
their live young is tiny, like
that size right there. Let's say we're looking at a chart now. You see 2,400. That's how small they are.
So when I think live young, I'm thinking of the perch, but these live young are like little teeny.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's what we call eyed young.
Okay, I've cut them open and you see eyeballs.
Yeah,
in
that's
the
what
egg
it is.
sac,
Yeah,
and that's pretty close.
amazing.
Okay, so they're all right.
Yeah, you know, it starts out, you see them, they've got the eggs, it's all yellow and stuff.
Yeah.
And then 2 months later, stuff's all dark color. Well, all that dark is all those little eyes looking at you.
You can see eyeballs, yeah.
Now, the funny thing is, it seems like some of the rockfish revert back to just doing eggs. It seems like, well, for instance, scorpion fish, which are part of the...
Fish, sculpin?
Yeah, or what we call sculpin. They actually they lay eggs. The eggs actually float. They float up to the surface. Though they're they're in the same grouping as rockfish. And then I suspect, I've caught some rockfish, especially the sedentary ones, that it looks like they were actually spawning eggs, but I could be wrong on that. Yeah, so the combination of bad conditions for the recruitment, for the young, for a big year of baby fish, along with heavy fishing, we kept putting on heavier and heavier regulations until in 2000 we declared a rockfish disaster.
Oh, that was 2000.
That was 2000.
And you think that was a result of the gill netting?
It was a result of gill netting off this coast and trawling up north at the same time as bad recruitment.
And
if you had good recruitment,
it was a perfect storm of those three
perfect
things.
storm. Everything happened,
Yeah.
which is funny because we have a perfect storm. Something else happened
Right
later.
now?
The opposite. Right now we have a perfect storm
In a good way?
in a good way.
On rockfish.
Yeah. The
and
last 10 years have been really good recruitments, and fishing has been heavily regulated, heavily pushed down, and a lot of areas have been closed. And so right now our rockfish populations are the best they've been probably since 1970.
See, to me, this is a testament for managing the fishery.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
people complain all the time because when I was a kid, we would fish like 20 hook
Yeah,
canyons
yeah.
and window sashes and 100 fathoms, you know,
Sure.
with 12 ops, right? And I'm like, oh man, that was so great. But like you said, 2000, it took a dump, and then now it's coming back. Like, everybody complains about the management of the species, and I'm like, no, this is a good thing.
You
Just
gotta
be
do it.
patient. You have to do it.
We just have, in the United States, we have so much fishing power. We have industrial fishing power. And everybody wants to blame the commercials.
I do.
Yeah, you do.
I'll say it.
But,
yeah.
but I work with them all the time. And they have just as much concern as we do. We also have recreational fishing power. Here's an example. Cow cod is now rebuilt. However, we're not allowing people to take cow cod. Why is that? Well, maybe there's 100,000 cow cod out there, let's say. And we could allow maybe a catch of 10,000. Well, how many fishermen go fishing every year that want to go catch a cow cod? How many
I don't know.
people? How many people are there in
500?
California?
How many people actually would go get a cow? 500, 1,000, 10,000? I have no idea.
Maybe 10,000, maybe 20,000.
There's
how many
fishing
people?
licenses for people for fishing groundfish? I don't know. I have no idea.
We have no idea, but I'll just tell you that there are billions of dollars are spent in California on recreational fishing every year. It is up at the same level as commercial fishing.
Oh,
in the United States in general, recreational fishing actually has more economic input than commercial fishing. However, commercial fishing has to exist because we have to supply protein to the nation.
Yeah.
Recreational fishing supplies protein to the nation too, but we have to do it in a sustainable, managed way.
What percentage, dude, I've always been curious about this. I always think that when they're putting limits on recreational fishermen, that I'm like, hey, why are you putting limits on me? I only take like 2% of the fish, and the commercial's taking 98. Why aren't you limiting them and letting me do what I want? But I probably have the percentages wrong.
No, I'll tell you.
I'm curious, like if you drew a pie, which half is, like, what percentage is recreational, what percentage is commercial?
Okay,
Let's say on
I'll tell you.
groundfish.
Let's use vermilion rockfish.
Okay.
You all know vermilion rockfish.
Yeah, reds.
Right. Recreational anglers take 75% of the catch
Okay.
of vermilion.
I'll stop saying what I've been saying.
Which is a big commercial fish. Commercial takes 25%, and they are restricted open access. There's two kinds of commercial fishing. There's limited entry where you have to buy a $50,000 permit, and there's only like 30 of those permits, or there's what's called open access. And open access means you have to buy a commercial license, you have to have a beeper on your boat, you have to, that tells the Office of Law Enforcement where you are at any time. And so they're restricted to only catching 900 pounds every 2 months.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I thought that the commercial guys are putting a bigger dent on the fish than the wrec, but
No, it's
the
actually
other way.
opposite.
Okay.
Now,
that makes sense.
what's
All right.
happened with the commercial people is most of them have really gone out of business because it's been so difficult for them. The only ones that
Yeah.
really survive now in our area are small boats.
I was going to say that.
have
Guys on
small
whalers. Guys on whalers that aren't burning any gas.
crews. Yeah, that's right. Or people that have been doing it all their lives and know how to do, you really have to know exactly what you're doing. And here's the interesting thing that people don't realize. The community that runs the CPFVs, commercial passenger fishing vessels, what we call the sport boats, is the same community as the commercial fishermen in San Diego.
It is.
I come from a commercial, I was a commercial fisherman for 7 years, and then I was a CPFV captain for 10 years. It's the same community. There are a number of the captains and owners of the sport fishing boats here are commercial fishermen in the winter.
Oh, we used to do that. We used to on the.
Well, you remember you were with your dad.
On the sport boats, we would do crew trips, and we would load up for commercial.
Yeah.
We would do commercial trips, and we would load up the bait tank. That's when we did the 20 hook canyons.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they were commercial days.
that was legal if everybody on the boat had a commercial fishing license.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did it too. I would take I had a small, the Falcon was only 47
Okay.
feet, And so in the winter we would fish rockfish, and then in the fall we'd go up to Morro Bay and fish albacore.
At first, when you said that there was a lot of crossover from commercial to sport, I was like, I don't know, guys, but now it's all coming to me. Like,
the guys coming back.
I know a ton of guys that are fishing like lobster in the winter.
Yes.
You know, they're like I know like in light boats, like a lot of the sport
light
boats
boats,
put
like
lights.
Joe V's light boat.
I know Joe.
Joe and I are very close.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I hope he sees this. My dad ran second on towards the end of the last end of his chapter
On the Mirage.
On the Mirage, I worked on the Mirage for years.
Yeah.
When Bob Levy bought it.
Yeah.
When it was he called it the Mirage. My
Yeah.
dad owned Wainimi Sport Fishing when Bob brought the Mirage
I
to
remember
Wainimi.
telling you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Mirage came from Westport, where my boat came from Westport.
The Mirage is
So
different.
that's the funny thing is that we're all the same community, and
Oh,
we're
yeah.
all concerned with sustainability, because if we don't sustain the stocks, we don't get to live. I mean, it's this is the thing. This is all based on what's called the Magnuson-Stevens Act, and the Magnuson-Stevens Act, if I remember correctly, passed in '76. I may have that wrong. I get my years messed up. Bob Fletcher would tell me right away.
That's crazy.
And it mandated that fisheries had to be sustainable. That you'd have two situations. You'd have overfishing occurring, which means we're catching more fish than are being replaced.
Yeah.
And then if you get it down to 25% of the original stock for rockfish, then it is overfished. So what we do is we aim for, this is really technical, but we aim to keep the stocks above 40%.
Okay.
Of their original biomass. Now, how do we
what's
figure
the
out the
original
original
biomass?
Very difficult.
Yeah.
What you do is you go back and you look at the records, which go all the way back to 1915, and maybe even earlier, and you look at the records of catches, and you watch how in certain periods there's no fishing going on, and you just watch it up and down. It's very difficult, but that's what you do. You have to somehow establish what's called BO, or the original stock. It's very hard, and it turned out what happened with Calcott is we thought the original stock was, let's just call it 100x.
Uh-huh.
It turned out when we kept working with it and watching how it rebounded, and now it's rebounded probably very close to original, it turned out that it was only 15x. There was a lot less fish originally out there than we originally thought. So that's why we came. Yeah, so we didn't think it was going to be rebuilt until 2080.
So it was 15x. We thought it was 100x, and we built all the way up to 100x.
No, we built up to 15x.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
so that's why it was closed for so long, because we thought we were low, but really we were there.
We for so long. There was a time when we were down at 5, or 4. I mean, we were really down on Calcott. And then when we closed what we call the Calcott areas, closure areas.
Calcott conservation areas.
Conservation areas, you're absolutely right, which is huge areas.
Yeah.
And then we closed anything beyond 50 fathoms for a while, even beyond 20 fathoms for a while, for 1 year. The Calcott have really recovered.
That's
and they're
great to
probably back to where they originally were before.
I've been seeing them a lot at bycatch the last couple of years.
Have you?
Yeah. We
Okay.
probably get 6 or 8 a year now.
Wow.
And they're like maybe
you must fish different places. I get about 2 a year.
they're not the 25 pounds, but I'm
No.
not fishing deep. I'm fishing 50 fathoms. Or
Yeah, and
that's
that's about as shallow as they come.
and they're maybe the 8 to 10 pound fish.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
So I'm seeing them.
And so you're ready. So you're ready when you're descending here.
Yeah, of
you know?
course. Yeah.
And this is something that I really have to point out. Fishermen that have been concerned with, even commercial fishermen.
Uh-huh.
I have commercial fishermen friends that descend cows all the time, every day. And as a matter of fact, they hate it because
it takes away from your day.
Absolutely.
I'm like, I kind of got this killer instinct. I don't want to take the time to do it, honestly.
Right.
But I do it because it's the right thing to do.
it's the right thing to do,
the right thing to do.
and the commercial fishermen do it as well. So you got to have your descending device ready. I actually have a bucket with a 6 pound weight and 2 of the.
I thought you were joking when you said you had that.
Yeah, and so it's sitting on my deck right now.
Uh-huh.
I was just down at the boat, ready to go. at all times.
Yeah.
I used to keep it in one of my lockers on the boat. No, that ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
I have it right there. It's ready to go. We get a cow cod, or actually many other fish that we don't. Let's say we don't want to keep them. Like for instance, tree fish. They're beautiful, but they have so much fat on them that when I cook them, my wife says, "Don't ever do that again," because they're reared. So tree fish, I'm putting them back all the time. A lot of different fish. I go ahead. Well, for instance, last year we had a 4-fish limit on vermilion, and I'll tell you what's going on with vermilion in a second. This year it's going to be 2. We're going to actually reduce it down to 2. So we're going to be descending vermilion like crazy.
Okay.
I mean, some people know how to avoid them. I know how to avoid them because they really are. They had a tendency to be in particular places.
I need to get that data from you when the camera's turned off, because I want to not avoid them.
I know. I saw your video from last year talking about the regs, and oh, there's a vermilion. Oh, there's another vermilion. That's the one we really want. Well, this next year it's not going to be the one you really want.
Well, at least you're letting us keep 1 or 2. 1? It's 2.
2. It was a big battle.
You know what? It is what it is. You roll with it, and that's why I take those videos. It's going to be the good old days. You know, and then maybe in 20 years we'll be getting 10 of them again.
Yeah,
Who knows?
absolutely.
Hopefully.
So what's happened with vermilion is that the population has rebounded. It was really down. Has rebounded quite a lot. But we've opened up deeper depths, and so the fishery has rebounded quite a lot. And so what we do is we've got vermilion, we've fished it down now to around 47%. And if we keep fishing at the same rate, the projections will tell you that we'll get below 40% into what's called the precautionary zone, where we start making some more drastic reductions. I mean, real drastic, until we get down to 25%, and then we just shut the fishery down. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to avoid that scenario. If we keep fishing the way we have in the last 5 years, vermilion is on a course of going down. What we want to do is we want to have it either stable or coming up. Okay. And so what we're doing, and this is really important, what we're doing is we're reducing limit to 2 this year, and we're changing the areas that you can fish in. So let me.
I'll bring. Up. You don't have to do this on the camera. I'll do it.
Okay. Well, I just want to point out. So this is here the proposed regulations, the ones that on the council. I used to be on the council myself. Have okayed, and that the state on March 26th will okay as well. So what you see here is that this year coming up, in the southern region, which is below Point Conception, you'll see that, of course, we're closed until April 1st. And then from April 1st to July 1st, you can fish in any depth. This says all depth. I like to say any depth you want, all depth. And then July, you can only fish inside 50 fathoms.
So
and the reason for that
this is new from last year. July, August, September has you have to stay inshore.
You have to stay inshore.
So that last year. So right now, what I'm seeing on this graph is I see closed January, February, March, all depth, April, May, June.
Right.
And then outside of so you have to fish shallow.
Right.
Inside the 50 fathom curve. In the summer, and then we can go, and then outside the 50 fathom curve in the winter, October, November, December.
That's absolutely right.
So right now there's one closed, 1, 2, 3, 4. There used to be 3 columns. Now there's 4 columns.
Put another one in the middle.
Okay.
And so the reason is that we measure this up in poundage or tonnage. As we got into deeper water, we encountered all these big vermilions, but they're not really vermilions, they're actually sunsets, but you can't tell the difference between the two unless you do genetics. Oh. So we counted all these big fish. So as before, we were adding up fish this size, let's say 10,000 fish this size. Now we're catching fish, 10,000 fish this size.
And you guys do it off of mass, not off of quantity?
We do it off of tonnage.
Tonnage,
mass. Yeah, exactly. And that's hard because what we
you
have to do
less
is
fish but more mass because they're bigger.
Exactly.
Okay, I get it.
What they do is the people from the department ride the boats, and then they weigh the fish and get an average, and then they multiply that times how many fish they can.
So when Fish and Wildlife are out there, that's getting real data.
Getting real data,
Yeah.
and they ride the sport boats a lot.
And this is 70%, and recreational fishing, 70% of the fishing.
75% of the
Yeah.
Vermilion Sunset
All right.
is taken by recreational fishing.
I'll lay off.
Isn't that amazing?
I'll lay off the commercial guys.
Yeah, you better lay off the commercial guys. It is a long story what's happened with commercial fishing. When the Magnuson-Stevens Act was passed in 1976, I think it was 67, I think it was 76, we had a number of nations, Japan, Poland, Russia, Korea, that were actually fishing off our shores, close. And they were fishing for Pacific Ocean perch, which is a kind of rockfish. They were fishing for hake. And I actually remember, gosh, in 1981, going up the coast doing research and seeing these huge fleets of giant boats out there. So
Was this all up north, or was it in Southern California?
it happened down here too. It actually happened out in the Cortez and the Tanner. There
Oh.
were huge foreign industrial.
This
fleets
is in the
out there.
early 80s?
This would be the 70s, and then in around the 80s, well, what happened was it's crazy. We said, okay, we're going to have a 200-mile limit, and you can't fish there anymore. But we also said, well, it still has to be fished, and we don't have any boats that are big enough to go out in there and fish. So what we did was we did this situation where we sent our little boats out, they fished, and then they took the nets over to the big foreign processors. That's what happened in Alaska too. That's what happened for about 5 years. At the same time, we financed, the government financed, building of our own larger boats. And when our own larger boats were built, then we said, okay, foreign boats, you have to go away now. No, we're not going to do a partnership with you anymore. You have to go away. We're going to fish it. So we went out and we fished the heck out of it.
Yeah.
We fished it hard. We had no idea that the stock had already been fished down considerably by the foreign fleets, and then we went out and we fished the heck out of it. And it was a big event. And the same thing happened, king crab, you've heard about, deadliest catch and stuff. That's all part of the same thing. The government supported and sent loans to build a huge fishing fleet to replace what we thought was the commercial, the foreign fleets. Well, it turned out we built way too many boats, and it turned out we had some bad recruitment years. And so in the 90s, the Pacific Fishery Management Council knew there were problems, so we started restricting the commercial boats, and just restricting them down. And matter of fact, I think it was just before 2000, we actually had what was called a government buyback. Our government actually paid people, bought their boats back. Said, okay, your boat's worth $400,000. We're gonna pay you $500,000 for it. But this boat can no longer be used for fishing. There's a bunch of people that got some really nice boats, but you had to promise you wouldn't ever use it for commercial fishing.
Oh, wow.
So we had this big buyback. So the fleet actually shrunk by 40%.
I had no idea that the government was this entangled with all of it.
Oh,
I've seen
yeah,
it in
absolutely.
other industries where rebates or incentives
Yeah.
and stuff, and really, like, let's say with solar right now, right? The government's
exactly.
basically incentivizing solar to get more solar out there, right? So I've seen it there, but I had no idea it was done with like commercial fleets.
With
and
fishing, I mean, the whole
boats.
idea was we're providing protein to the nation. I mean, you have
That's
to
the
remember
way to look at it. We're
that
providing protein to the nation.
The wonderful thing about fish is that you fish them down, and they bounce back. Most of the fish bounce back really well.
They want to sustain.
They want us to stay. And here's the crazy thing: who eats all the little baby fish? Big fish. So you catch a whole bunch of the big fish, and a whole bunch of little baby fish that would have been eaten by the big
The
fish
fox and the rabbit.
are now growing up. So it's called steepness, how fast a stock will rebound.
Does every fish species have a different steepness curve, or is it
Absolutely.
related to what else is going on around it too?
No, so we use an average steepness curve for rockfish.
Okay.
And that's a difficult thing because I think some rockfish rebound faster than others. I mean, I think the ones that are up in the water column eating sardines and anchovies and squid all the time and grow real fast and spawn, you know, a lot,
I
etc.
feel like I see boccaccios everywhere.
For boccaccios.
I bet boccaccio would be a fast steepness curve. No,
That's right.
They seem to be everywhere.
It was
and
steep.
whitefish aren't a ground fish, but I feel like whitefish seem to reproduce
Well,
really well.
here's an example. Tuna, the steepness on tuna, the steepest you can go like that is 1.
Like I bet that'd be mahi.
Or mahi, perfect
Fish, the
example.
fish that reproduce, like the life cycle. I like to know how old fish are and stuff. Is it catchy?
Yes.
Mahi, you get 3 years, you got a trophy.
Yeah.
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 You know, so I gotta imagine it only takes a little bit to.
Well, so
to
that's steepest of 0.98.
Yeah. Okay.
So what we've done is we've averaged out what we believe is the steepness for rockfish, and we figure it's like 0.65. Now, I would argue certain rockfish are probably 0.75, and so when we do the models, we throw in 0.75 to see what happens, and it winds up with boccaccio coming out your ears.
Oh, and real curious. So if we got mahi at 0.98,
Yeah.
rockfish in the 0.67s, what's a low steepness curve? Like a black sea bass?
Dogfish.
I don't even know what a dogfish is.
I'm sorry, sharks.
Oh, okay.
Sharks that only have 4
Oh.
young.
I've
Pressure sharks,
always
for
been
instance.
against fishing sharks.
Well, that's a
I've
good
always
reason.
been against it. I've always been against it because when I was a kid, on glassy days, I'd sit on top of the wheelhouse and stare
Oh,
out,
those
and
blue
they'd be
sharks.
finning everywhere. We'd
Blue
run
sharks.
over hammerheads, finning blue sharks. I would just coming in from the islands.
Yeah.
I would see 10, 15 sharks just finning
Yeah.
on the glassy days, on the
Yeah.
super glass oily days. I would now never. I'm like,
Very,
that's-
very
I'm like,
strange thing what happened. We had, when you and I were pinheads,
Yeah.
pinhead is a
I was a pinhead in the 70s.
young fisherman.
I used to get $10 a day to bag fish.
That's exactly
and
it.
scrub the boat.
Back in those years, which was 60s and 70s, there was a huge population of blue shark here. And then there were some large Mexican longline fisheries, and there was some gillnet fishing happening for swordfish, a huge expansion of the gillnet fishery, which we overexpanded. Same deal.
Nobody's perfect.
Nobody-
Everybody's going to critique the government. I guarantee it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we got to understand that people. It's people, and people aren't perfect. but
Sure.
we're trying.
I mean,
we're trying.
we've got to remember government is us.
I see the effort.
We keep forgetting government is us. So
I see the effort.
So it's interesting on the stock. Apparently, the blue sharks, that stock wound up moving to the west, and it's starting to come back a little bit.
So just
But
offshore. They
It,
just all live
it
offshore
moved
now?
offshore. Now, what did we fish it inshore, and that population is no longer, or did the orange sharks get tired of being heckled, or was there something out there that drew them out there? But apparently, there's still lots of blue sharks, but they're beyond where we ever
Well, we're
see
seeing
them.
tons of white sharks now.
Well, there you go. There's a
They're
perfect
coming back.
example. Yeah. So
we're digressing. Let's get back to
well, so
groundfish.
anyway,
Yeah.
I was just talking. Okay, so
0.68.
so
0.7.
steepness, and that's really important. The other thing that's really important is that groundfish have a strategy where the ones that sit on the bottom live for 100 years. I mean, it's actually theorized that and reading otoliths is very difficult. That there are, like a short raker might live to 200 years. Most rockfish don't. Most rockfish live to like 50. And very few of them do too, because there's all kinds of problems. I mean, you know, there's a curve,
Oh,
just
yeah.
like for humans. Humans in the 1700s, the average, you know, they lived to 50 or so. So what we have to establish is what the mortality is, and then here's the other crazy thing: like humans, rockfish grow to a certain length and then they stop. When they get to around 20, 30 years, they get to a length we call length at infinity. They actually don't keep growing. They
The
actually
growth curve
stop.
looks like this.
Yeah,
It flattens out.
So what we see is we see a growth curve going whoop, and then
Okay.
so. But what happens is those fish, they stop growing in length and weight, but their gonads get better and better and better over time.
Oh,
They
so
actually
even though it looks like this, so potentially you have two fish that look alike. One might be twice as old,
Right.
but it's a better producer.
it's a better producer.
So you like those old fish because they produce better, even
Yeah.
though they look like the younger fish.
Right.
Okay.
That's what we call BOF, big old fish. They actually produce more young. So you
Everybody says
want
that.
that.
Everybody always says let the big females go.
Yeah, and
it's
that's
true.
why.
It's
It
true.
appears to be true.
It's hard to let a trophy fish go.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah, the biggest fish is the one you don't want to.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
So
Take a picture.
so we do these models where we incorporate what we said, steepness and mortality, and we take the catch over the years, and we try to come up with what we think the stock is. And when we think the stock is below 40%, then we're in the precautionary zone, and we start applying what's called the 40-10 rule, which means you reduce it by a certain amount. It's a curve until we get to 25%, and then we go, oh, it's overfished, and then we start doing draconian things.
Do you think
That's
they'll
happened.
Do you think there could be vermilion conservation zones like there are for cows? Worst case scenario. All right, you don't have to say that.
I won't go that.
Let me take a break. I have to change the battery. Okay, I think we're recording.
We are recording. Okay, so let's talk real fast about overfished. So we already stated that overfish is at 25% of the original.
Okay.
Right? Quillback. And that's why you see here actually more draconian restrictions up north.
You know what?
You don't know what a quillback is?
I know what it is. They're kind of like a gopher cod, I think.
Yeah,
but
like a gopher cod with
kinda like
great
that.
big giant
Yeah, real pointy.
spines, almost the same spines as a cow cod.
I'll put a picture of one up. It's easy enough.
You'll have to do that because this is really important.
Do we get quillbacks down in?
No.
Where's the southernmost average? Yeah, I'm sure you.
Monterey.
Monterey. Okay, so this is quillback or Monterey North.
Yeah.
Mostly. I'm sure we might get one here. Who knows?
So apparently over the years 5 quillback have been caught out of Morro Bay. It's not enough to worry about.
Okay.
So what's happened with quillback? We decided to do an assessment. Nobody knew what quillback. Matter of fact, nobody really knew what any of the nearshore fishes are. I say nearshore. You mentioned gopher. We base our assessments on surveys that have been conducted. We're very fortunate here in Southern California that we have the hook and line survey, which goes out every September with 4 boats from our
I remember they used to
CBFD
come
fleet.
out.
Joe V.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Joe
Mirage.
V Real, and the Mirage does it every year, and he's done it every year.
Those are fun trips to be on with your crew.
Oh, yeah,
Those
they're
are great
fun.
trips to be on with your
It's
crew.
interesting though. You have to go through a National Marine Fisheries Service safety course first. But anyway, so we're very fortunate. We kind of know what we've got here below Morro Bay. Below Point Conception, but above Point Conception, most of the surveys are trawl surveys. We actually have a 2 this year. 2 large trawlers that are commercial trawlers that normally fish for hake actually do a run down the coast 2 times a year and trawl and keep track of everything. Interesting enough, in Oregon and Washington, they're allowed to keep what they catch and sell it. In California, that's illegal. You can't do research trawling and sell it. That's a detail. But the problem is they can't trawl on the rocks.
Okay.
So this is the reason why we came up with the hook and line survey, because we can fish in the rocks carefully. So we have a pretty good idea what's in Southern California, but north of there we had very little idea. Now we've got another survey called the CCFRP, California Cooperative Fisheries Research Project, more or less. I may have that wrong. Which goes into, this is really neat, takes sport boats as well, what we call sport boats, and goes into MPAs and catches fish and descends them back, or if they're shallow, they can only go into 20 fathoms, 120 fathoms, and shallower. And then they compare it to non-MPAs. So we actually have a comparison now north of Morro Bay, from Morro Bay north, of what's in the MPA and what's alongside of the MPA. So that is giving us some information what's in the shallow water. But that's just starting up. You really need about 6 to 10 years of information to really get a good picture of what the stock is.
Yeah.
So we have all these years of the trawl survey, but there's almost no quillbacks in it. So what do you say?
So there's no.
Well, we get a few quillbacks, but not many. Well, I guess there aren't many. I mean, that's all you can come up with.
But you're not looking on the rocks.
You're not looking at the rocks, so we don't know. And so then we take this limited amount of survey from CCFRP, and okay, there's some quillbacks in there. That's good to know. But it's inside 20 fathoms. It turns out the largest mass of quillbacks of the stock is from 20 to 50 fathoms in the rocks where nobody can go, so nobody knows. Okay, so what are we going to use to try to figure out what the quillback population is? We're going to look at commercial catches, and we're going to see that in the 50s, commercial catches were really low, and then in the 60s it started going up, and then the 70s going up, and then suddenly people figured out, hey, quillback's a tough fish. I can sell it live to Chinese markets. And so the fishery went, really roared up and stayed up pretty high until COVID came. And so what we think happened is, but we only have this information of what we caught, and that it was at a certain low level and then really high for a long time. We think it's overfished.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we think it's so overfished it's down to 14% of original biomass.
Oh man.
Really bad. Really bad. So
yeah, that's got to be tough though, because you just said you didn't have really good baselines.
we
So
don't have good baselines.
all
but
we know is that we just started catching a whole bunch of them all at once.
Yeah,
because we were targeting them.
Yeah,
nobody targeted them, so we didn't know about them, and now they target them.
And now they
know
target
about
them for 14, 15 years. And so, reasonably we can presume, that's all we can do, is that it could be a fish in trouble. So we do all the model, and we look at growth, and is this a fish that lives to 80 years, and is this a fish that only has a successful recruitment? And then the other thing we have a plankton survey, which actually surveys the juvenile rockfish. It's called Juvenile Rockfish Survey. So we had a lot of information going into it. Not enough, really, and I battled this assessment, saying this is a good enough assessment to be careful, put it in precautionary zone, to ramp it back. This is not a good enough assessment to really stop the fishery. Well, we did a lot of work, and we just came up with the best available scientific information is that it is at 14% and in really, really bad shape. So what happened was last August, the department closed the commercial fishing completely and closed any retention of quillback. We brought it down to only keeping one because we wanted to be able to grab some samples, right? To see what their ages are and such. If it showed that we had a whole bunch of 40-year-old fish, well, that's great. The otoliths we got were showing that we have a bunch of 5 or 6-year-old fish. Not so great. Fish. So in other words, they're being trimmed off. They don't get older. It's a bad thing. So the department actually shut the fishery down, and so badly that they shut down rockfish north of Point Conception completely.
Oh, so because of quillback, the other fish, restricted fishing the other fish.
And pushed it out. You had to go beyond 50 fathoms.
Okay, and quillback, you said quillback were 20 to 50 fathoms?
20 to 50 fathoms with some in shallower, but it looks like the main mass is 30 fathoms.
Okay.
So now we have this new season. We're required by Magnuson-Stevens Act to rebuild these fish.
Something just clicked for me. This was the 1976-ish act?
Right.
The year's not for sure, but somewhere in that range. That act says if we recognize that a fishery is depleted, we have to rebuild it.
Right.
And that's the law. The law says we're monitoring every fish, and
Every fish we can, but
every
yes.
fish we can. And okay, so that's who does that? Scripps?
No, National Marine Fisheries Service does
National
it.
Marine Fisheries
in
Service.
cooperation with the
Fish and
Department of
Wildlife.
Fish and Wildlife of each state.
Okay. Oh, so every state, because this is a national act, and it says if the fishery's going down, fix it.
Right.
And that's what we're doing. This is the law.
This is the law.
The law. There's an act that says that we have to implement stuff like this.
Right.
And is that for one fish? Because I never really even paid attention to quillback, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And even like on a like say, I haven't fished a lot up north, but would a quillback be equivalent to like, I don't know, a chucklehead or a red?
Yeah.
Like as far as percentages up north, like do they care about, like do the recreational fishermen care about quillback up north? Or is it just like one of the many rockfish they catch?
Well,
I'm just wondering because like
actually,
like we care about vermilion,
right?
You know,
really care about them.
but you know I get it. There's we catch these little starries and we catch other.
Right.
I'm sure they're just as important as a vermilion to the act. Is this quillback? Is it an important? Is it a fish that people really like?
It doesn't
I
matter
don't want
what.
to be mean, but do people care about quillbacks?
It doesn't matter whether it's important to us.
I
It
know.
matters whether the stock is depleted.
All right, I
and,
agree.
And so we have to make these decisions on which fish we assess. So we have a matrix. We actually have an app that I can show you, where we put in all these different factors. Like one of the factors is importance to the fishery.
I know. I don't think that should. It's hard. How do you put in importance? It's like why is a wolf so important?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
because people care about it because it was in a bunch of movies and it's
But the reality is,
Why is it more important than a
wolf
coyote?
A wolf is important because it is a predator that controls population of, say, deer.
But
And if you kill off all the wolves, the famous example is the Kaibab Plateau, where they killed off all the coyotes, all the wolves, all the bears, and they just let the deer be themselves. The deer ate themselves out of house and home.
oh yeah.
And the deer started having genetic problems because the ones that were
Oh, the
lousy.
survival of the fittest wasn't there.
Survival of the fittest wasn't happening anymore, and that's why you have to have wolves. So the quillback is important to the commercial fishery because it was a live fish. They were getting like $8 a pound for this stuff, probably more now if they can fish it. They can't. So it's commercial importance. In like out of Crescent City, it's an important fish. Out of San Francisco, it's a wonderful novelty. You know, people go, "Oh, look at that! Isn't that great?" The really good example is down here, chucklehead, which is actually
Copper rockfish.
copper rockfish. Thank you. To me, it's just
Dude,
chucklehead.
I'm happy I can keep up with you, kind of.
Well, you should. You should be able to, and I hope everybody else can. So we did the assessment on copper rockfish, and it showed that on the coast it was in pretty good shape, but south of Conception it was in terrible shape. It was down to 17%. So that's why we pulled copper rockfish down to 1.
I feel like I used to catch a lot, now I catch less. For me,
Yeah.
it was reds and chuckleheads. They were my two favorite eaters.
Yeah,
for
me
ceviche,
too. When
yeah.
I was commercial fisherman, that's what I targeted.
Yeah.
There's still a lot up around the Channel Islands where it's really rough. That's what saves you. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, the quillback rockfish is overfished, and we really had to ratchet back fisheries terribly. To the point that pretty much nobody could fish unless it was outside 50 fathoms. So now we've come up with these new seasons where for the northern area, which is Crescent City, in April you have to fish outside 50 fathoms, and then in May, June, July, August, and September you're going to fish inside 20 fathoms, avoiding the quillback. So we're avoiding the quillback, right?
Yeah.
And in October you're going to have to fish back outside 50 fathoms, but then in November we're going to let you back inside 20 fathoms, and then in December we're going to let you fish outside 50 fathoms.
Why do we have the seasons? Like why? I get that like okay, the quillback are between 20. I know why we have the depth curves. And
Right.
we're basically just trying to preserve a certain kind of mass of fish. But why is it like why is it from July, August, September you have to fish inshore?
Okay.
What's happening then? Like why
So-
why are these so many slot?
So what
Why
we
are we
did,
moving around so
what we
much?
did, I don't know if you
Is
can
it
see
because-
this. Can you see here? I'm going through all this stuff, and there are many different possibilities that we went through. We actually went through 7 different models of what we could fish, and for instance, here's one here. It's all depth for these months, and then we wound up with see, we got to keep underneath 200. There's 202 or 210.
Is it because that's when people are targeting them, or is that because?
Okay, the reason is
that's
because
when they're mating, or when they're.
I'll tell you. Let's get back to it. We'll find it again. The reason is that the most people go fishing in those months.
Okay, so
we get the most bang for the buck.
Okay.
You know, there's two reasons. Most people go fishing in those months. So if you got to have any months that you're going to pull back on people catching vermilion, it's those months.
Okay.
But the other reason is in the summertime we have other fish to catch.
I don't fish rock fishing when I'm fishing the other fish. Honestly.
This year rock fishing was so good that I fished it all year.
I'll sneak out. Yeah. If I'm out tuna fishing or fishing fillet jigs, if I see a good rock, I'll drop on it. I
Absolutely.
can't help myself.
Can't help yourself.
I'm rock fishing at heart. It's
don't,
in my blood.
Just don't drop on the.
I hate.
On the 43, thank you.
No. I follow the rules. I'm not
I
just
know
saying
you
that
do.
for the camera.
I know you do. We have to, but to follow rules, you got to know it. But anyway, that's the reason. So Joe V and I and Jamie Diamond and Merritt McCrae. These are all people you probably know. These are all people that work in the sport fishing and also work with me on the Gap, or formerly were on the Gap. We with the department, we proposed models, and they modeled it, and they ran them all through, and we want to get to a place where we weren't catching too many copper, and we weren't catching too many vermilion, and then allowable catch for quillback next year to get it rebuilt by 2080 is 2 tons for the whole coast.
Yeah.
Well, we're looking for vermilion at 210 tons.
Okay.
See? So much more liberal. We're looking at copper at 74 tons.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to do, is get these seasons that'll work. In the spring, it blows like crazy, so you've got to have the options to go shallow.
Okay.
Right? In the fall, it's pretty calm a lot. So we got to, we can go deep and actually be productive. And in the summertime, you can go fish all those other fishes. We can go fish calicos.
Okay, so some of these timelines are related to when people fish for these fish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if it had to do with if they were reproducing at that time, or it was, you know, they were susceptible to something at that time. But okay, so just basically it's like, hey, this is when everybody fishes them, but like you said, we get the most bang for the buck at that time in this location.
So you may wonder why we have a January, February, March closure.
Because that's the only time I fish rockfish. So I'm guessing it's because that's when we fish them.
The real reason is because lingcod come into shallow and are very available. That's when you catch spawning lingcod. You don't want to do that. That's the time that most rockfish actually give their young.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so it's much better to catch them when they've just got little eggs that you know. But when they're full of 250,000 young and you just caught them and the eggs are all over the deck,
I feel bad
that's
when
probably when you don't want to fish them.
When I see a deck full of eyeballs, I feel
Exactly.
that way. I feel about that way about lobster in late season. I don't know, should I be?
Buried.
Because right now we're at the end of lobster season.
Are you starting to get them buried?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
When you
Well,
say
just-
buried,
just
what do you
drop
mean?
them back.
Wait, when you say buried, what do you mean? With
Eggs along.
no, I'm not. I was out last night. I didn't see any with. In fact, I don't think I've ever really got any with the eggs in them.
Well, because that's why the season's the way it is. Because
I get them with the carapace, with the sperm sac.
Yeah.
And then when you pull their tail off, there's eggs in there.
inside,
And
but
I
you
feel-
don't get them with the eggs on the outside.
I haven't got any on the eggs.
Yeah,
on the outside,
that's
so-
why this lobster season's the way it
Okay,
is.
so.
Yeah, it's for that reason. Yeah.
Okay, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
we
that
talked
is
about?
that a fairly good picture that we're going to have
No.
this year? We're in April 1st. We get to go to any depth, and
South of Point Conception.
south of Point Conception. Yeah.
I'll go through all of this, the rules, but look, I just did an executive summary of what's changing
There it
for
is.
2024.
Right.
So there's new times and depth limits. So basically what we had last year, but it's different, kind of, right?
Right.
And then, didn't you say that we need? Okay, so there's a quillback is a no catch fish now.
Quillback is no catch now.
Think of quillback like the like cowcod and what was the other one? The
Bronze spotted.
Bronze spotted, yeah. So there's a few fish that are just like, if you get one, put it back.
Right.
And then so quillback was added to that list. We got the new slots. What did you say about we have to have a descending device?
Yes, you're going to require this year for the first time. All other states, Oregon, Washington, Texas, Florida, Alaska, they all require you have a descending device.
So if we get pulled over and we don't have a descending device, potentially that's a ticket.
If you're fishing for any groundfish or have any groundfish on board, if you're fishing for calicos and you don't have any rockfish on board, they can't ticket you.
Is it only if you? So when you say, because I'm fishing for calicos and there's rockfish below my boat.
Yeah.
I'm bound to catch something with my plastic. So
yeah.
how?
I think you better have a descending device.
Okay, have a descending.
However, if you're out trolling for albacore.
Albacore.
If you're out trolling for yellowfin tuna, I don't think they're going to ticket you for not having a descending device on board.
Okay, but get a descending.
Get a descending device, and the interesting
and
thing
use
about
it
this,
and use it
and use it. Get good at it. That's the main thing.
We don't want to have a whole trail of pelicans following the boat to eat our shorts.
No, we don't. It's not good.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Okay, so descending device, new times, no quillback, reduced limit of vermilion, right? Because it was 4, now it's 2.
Right.
So those are the changes. That's the executive summary of the changes. We got a long history of how we get there, but that's the executive summary.
It's actually fairly simple when you look at it that way. For us.
Well, that's all. Like
nobody's up north, it's not quite as simple.
This stuff's complicated.
Well, and you wonder why up north they have 50, then 20 fathoms, then 50 fathoms. It's because they like to go crabbing.
So the crab, what?
They like to have what are called crab combos.
Oh, they do crabbing and rockfish at the same time.
Yeah. So in November, it's usually when you can go crabbing. So they say, okay, well, that's great. Why don't you go crabbing and fishing inside 20 fathoms at the same time?
So that was almost like a nicety to say, hey, we know you want to keep doing this. Just do it on the inside so we don't hurt the fish on the outside.
Exactly. And then in December we know the weather's crap. You're all shopping for Christmas presents. You're not going out, are you? Well, those of you who want to go out, why don't you go outside 50 fathoms? There's going to be very few of you out of Crescent City going out, period, in December.
It might be a little bumpy out there.
It might be a little, never mind. Don't want to go past the jetty.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Hey, there's one thing that's always kind of like, I think I know the answer, but I think it's unclear to a lot of people. So say when we say, in San Diego, we got a 50 fathom curve, right? Mm-hmm. And the rules say inside, outside. So when you drive, that doesn't mean that's a line off the coast and you can fish on one side of it or the other.
Right.
So that doesn't mean you can't. So let's say there's a season where you have to fish greater than 50 fathoms. Okay, that really, it's not greater than 50 fathoms, it's outside the 50 fathom curve.
No, it's outside the 50 fathom line as written in the Code of Federal Regulations. You go to the Code of Federal Regulations, which I saw you did. I saw that last year.
I opened it up.
Yeah, and there are these points. Well, if you fish out of San Diego, you just have to put in 4 or 5 points.
Yeah.
It's not that many. But you really want to put them in. It's actually available programs that you can buy to put the lines in. But I just put them in.
I'll go through. I'm going to go through that on the video. But say you go past that line, mm-hmm. and then it comes up to 40 fathoms. Can you fish 40 fathoms outside the 50 fathom line, like the 9 Mile Bank or any of the other ridges? Because a lot of people, they just say, I can't fish greater than 50 fathoms, but I'm thinking you can fish 30 fathoms on the 9. Well, if it comes up that high.
It doesn't. The 9 only comes up to 66. Yeah. And that's actually a Mexican. I know the 9 like I know the back of my old hand.
Is there anywhere outside of the 50 fathom line that's shallower than 50 fathoms that we can fish?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
everybody just takes it as you can't fish deeper than 50, but I'm thinking you can fish shallower than 50 if it comes back up outside of that concept.
So what the law actually says is that you can fish seaward of the line that is in the Code of Federal Regulations. Or if it's a less than, you can fish shoreward.
Right. Yeah. So it's not a depth limit. It's an in or out of that line.
Exactly.
So potentially you could fish less than 50
So
fathoms
here
outside of the line.
Here's
I don't know where that is. You probably
here's a
wouldn't.
place that this will come into be very interesting. So you got the Cortez, right?
Uh huh.
So
Cortez comes all the way up to like what? 9 fathoms.
Tanner's 9. Cortez, you're going to go aground.
I
I
remember-
mean, if you
yeah.
have a, I mean,
Have you
it's
seen
a wash
the,
rod.
you seen the surf videos?
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
So I well know.
Yeah.
I've seen it breaking.
That's dangerous.
Yeah. So there's a real problem. We're going to have some problems with this regulation because.
Maybe I shouldn't be making this public. But
Well,
I think that's how it's written. That's how I read it.
Yeah. So, however, they have now put into the Code of Federal Regulations and into the California regulations actual lines on the Cortez and the
Oh,
Tanner.
good, because that's been unclear to me too. So there's a line off the coast, the 20 fathom, the 50 fathom line.
Right.
You know, that's by the GPS points. What happens when you get to the islands?
Yeah, they have lines too.
Is it from land out that draws the line? I guess you got to look at those.
Well,
those
yeah,
GPS
it is.
on the CFR.
No, it is. So let's
So is it
let's
from
say
land? So every island has a line around it.
they all have lines.
the 20 and the 50 fathom curve.
They all do.
Okay, so every island, and then what about the ridges now? They don't have lines yet.
The ridges have lines now too.
Which ridges?
Yeah, the ridge.
Which-
the actual, what we call the ridge, which we call in San Diego, the ridge out here 30 miles out, actually has lines on it, but they're not lines that are being used right now. So what you would call the ridge, which is from Santa Barbara Island
I
up
just
to
really mean where,
Anacapa.
I just mean where it comes up, high points.
Yeah.
I'm just
They
using it
now,
for high points.
over the last, and I could bring it up, over the last year, the Department of Fish and Wildlife actually worked with the government and made lines around all the high spots.
Can I put in a request to have CDFW like draw lines on that app they have for all
Yeah,
the
that's what we
NPRs?
need. That's what we need.
Man, I need to get on my soapbox because it's not clear.
No.
The CFRs looking at GPS points, like I feel like I'm a responsible fisherman, and look, I'm making an effort, and it's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. But I will tell you, they've done a really good job on that app that they have.
Yeah.
Where you can go on, it shows all the NPRs, and it even takes you
NPAs,
to
yes.
NPAs.
Yeah.
And it shows the 3 mile curve. I wish it showed the 50 fathom, the 20 fathom, and I wish it circled the islands and the high spots that you're talking about. We need that, Louis.
We're looking at charts right now. What do we got
This
here?
is Hawaii.
Well, this is the 100 fathom line around Hawaii. Here's the 50 fathom line. This is the fathom curve. Your charts actually have the 50 fathom curve. They won't be exact. Every year we put in new waypoints on these lines to try to get them more and more precise.
Yeah.
But you can actually look at your chart and see if
Once we get them on our, and that's
It's
how
50
that's
fathom and
basically
100
how I
fathom.
do it now. That's basically how I do it now.
and then put in a little extra.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to go to court.
But I didn't know about the lines around, the other spots.
Yeah.
I didn't know if the islands counted, but they do.
They do.
I
So,
didn't know.
Here's little islands. Look, there's your 100 fathom line. There's your 50 fathom line. That's your 20 fathom line.
So-
and the blue is 10 fathoms.
Okay, so in my head, I'm gonna put land has a line around it,
Yep.
and do I need to put in my head like Cortez,
If
Osborne,
you're gonna go there.
Cherry? And some of those are closures too. So you gotta know. In
Yeah.
addition
and
to
so
the contour lines, you have to know all the closures.
we actually
too.
have some new closures, which are called ground fish exclusionary areas.
Oh my
so,
goodness.
So
There's more.
what
And
we
wait,
did.
there's more.
And wait, there's more, and I gotta check. 'Cause I gotta
We
get-
need to know that. I don't know this. I'm gonna be
I'm gonna-
breaking the
I'm gonna-
rules.
Yeah, that one on the 43 is really important. So what happened was we've been negotiating for years, and I was part of the negotiating team, with National Marine Fisheries, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, California, and the environmental groups to open the Cowcott area, whatever it's called.
Cowcott conservation areas.
That's it. Very nice.
So basically, the Cowcott are coming back. Let's get in there and fish.
Right.
Thanks for fighting for fishermen, Louis.
But
No,
but
I know
what
you
happened?
do. I know you
What
do.
happened is that the environmentalists said, "Now look, you guys haven't pounded these areas for 20 years now, 24 years. And there's a whole bunch of beautiful corals out there. We, the last 2 or 3 years, have done surveys out there, and we have incredible videos of these absolutely beautiful corals. And so we really don't want to let you out there. So we had a negotiation group where we actually brought out all the charts, and we looked at it all, and we said, okay, put all the places where you've got these beautiful videos, and we'll tell you where all the places where we really like the fish are, and where we think there's a lot of fish that'll sustain a fishery. And so we had this big negotiation, and so we wound up certain banks, which are the banks that are well outside, where we usually don't go, and one bank, which is the 43, or the high spot on the ridge above Santa Barbara Island, which is called, you know it, what is it called? Anyway.
Cherry?
And the Cherry, which is outside San Nicolas. But that's another one of them. We're going to call those groundfish exclusionary area.
Is the butterfly out there?
Butterfly is not an exclusionary area, so there you go.
That's outside of Santa Cruz.
Southwest of, yeah. So we had this negotiation, and they wound up getting 75% of the areas that were really cool coral areas. We wound up getting about 75% of the areas we want to fish back.
So is this 2024 new rule?
As of January 1st.
Oh, so where's that published? We don't know
In
yet.
the Code of Federal Regulations. It's
Okay.
there.
So hopefully, California Fish and Wildlife will update their app to shrink that zone.
Right.
Okay.
Just show you where it is.
I'm curious
The
if they
one
did.
that's really important out of San Diego is the 43, which was in the CCA, and you
That's
couldn't
just-
fish there. Is still a groundfish exclusionary area.
Okay, so 43 is still closed.
Which, interesting enough, you like before, you can still fish tuna there, but you better not have a rockfish on board when you're doing it.
Dude, the knife jigging's changing things. I don't know how many times,
Yeah,
but we put them back.
yeah, you got to descend them.
Yeah, we
yeah.
descend them.
Yeah, you got
So,
to.
so that's a good point. If we're knife jigging
On the
in these
43,
areas,
right?
it's not uncommon to pick up some fish when you're knife jigging.
Absolutely.
Some rockfish. So we
What fun.
we have to descend those.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
part
law.
of the requirement of having to descend.
That's the law. If you're in the no take zone, you got to have a descending.
This is
device.
going to get really complicated with these seasons, and it already was this year when on the Cortez, because when it's inside 50 fathoms, okay, you fish for rockfish, but then you go out and fish for tuna, and you got rockfish on board,
Oh yeah.
you're in violation.
Yeah.
Or let's say it's over 50 fathoms, you go out and fish rockfish over 50 fathoms, and then you go anchor up for yellowtail, and you got rockfish on board, it's a violation.
It's hard to.
That's why it's good to go out with a professional captain that's required to know this stuff. And this is why I go around and talk to all these people.
Yeah. Oh, good.
I actually have to take my wife to the doctor.
Oh, I appreciate. This was awesome, Louie.